Okay, so this is the paper I gave you last time. It tells you the recap of the equations that we've learned, the forms. Okay, so they're all quadratic equations that I've been doing different forms for you. Okay, so the first form looked like this. So we talked about A being called the slope. And what kinds of things could that tell me?
The direction it opens?
It could open up or down if A was either positive or negative. That's something A could tell me. Wide or narrow. So it would be more narrow if A was bigger than 1 and more wide if A was less than 1. Then we had this number, the H position, and it was inside the brackets with the X. To have this, it had to be inside the brackets, which makes the parabola move either what or what?
Left or right.
Left or right. And this is a negative H in the formula, so what does that tell us about what we're thinking? We have to think opposite. And you can tell because this formula has a minus H, which means RH is opposite of that. And then we had a plus K, which could move up or down. And that would be the same because that formula has a plus K, so RK would be the same. But this formula has a minus H, so that's why that one's opposite. Okay, so here's the first question that looks like that form. So the vertex is what? So there's the 4 and the 6. So the 4 part is going to be with the X. The 6 part is the Y part. Can you think about the signs, plus or minus? Positive 4, because that's opposite. Negative 6. Okay, the slope. What is the number in front of the X part, multiplying it? 1. Okay, what's the domain of a parabola? Any parabola? Negative infinity to positive infinity. We go left to right. We're going to talk about range. So before I do we know which direction we're heading on this thing? An upward or a downward? Up. So therefore, my range is going to be some low number. What's the lowest height? Negative 6 to upward. Okay, and where was I looking for that negative 6? I was looking here because that's the Y part. That's the height part. Axis of symmetry is that cutting line. That's what that would be. So I'm going to have what to make the equation. It has to be an equation. What letter do I put there? X. X equals, and which X value is it going to cut through? 4. Okay, we're going to have to figure out the Y-intercept. It's not just look and find it. We have to calculate it. So a Y-intercept is when what's happening? X is 0.
Oh my gosh.
That's what you were thinking of before, wasn't it?
That's what I was waiting for. That's all I needed. Feel a little bit more.
Okay, so there is me plugging in 0 to replace the X. I'm going to do my math very carefully with my BEDMAS rules here. 0 minus 4, negative 4. Squared 16. And n minus 6 is 10. Okay, let's go to the graphing part of it. So there's the 4, negative 6. And what's the over a pattern on a quadratic? 1 over up 1. If I was to move 2 over 4, 3, 9. So 1, 1, 1, 2. Are you always going back to your vertex every time? Reset, reset. You always got to reset. Does your parabola look like it will cross the y-axis at 10? Does that make sense to you? Like if this was, I don't need to kind of graph that far, but if it was to continue, that makes sense to me. Always remember that. Your Y-intercept better make sense on your visual part of it too. Okay. Now, this form, this is the form I'm looking at right here. Okay, what's the difference now that is the difference between the first question we did? There's only one thing different.
There's more numbers at the front.
The numbers at the front, which means now it's also going to be opposite. Okay, and I will give you these formulas. I don't tell you the vertex and opposite and anything like that, but I give you this formula. So if you ever see the formula with a minus h and a minus k in the formula, those are going to be opposites. This has a minus and a plus. So this is opposite and this is same. Okay, so everything is opposite when it's in this form. So what's our vertex? 1, negative 7. Okay, make sure you think the x stuff goes first and then the y stuff. The slope is 2. Domain, negative infinity to infinity. Before I do the range, I'm going to have to consider if it's opening up or down. If your slope is 2, we're opening up. So therefore, it's going to be at some number and then upward. So where do I get that number from at the bottom? Negative 7 is the height at that place. At the vertex, the height is that, and then upward. Axis of symmetry, where do we cut through in the middle? X equals 1. Our y-intercept is where x equals 0. That's where the x is 0, yeah. So we're going to figure it out.
I don't know. We're just going to go with it.
On the y-intercept, your x is always 0 because of this. You're on this y-axis. So what's the x value there? 0. Okay. So I'm going to do bed mass. 0 subtract 1. I'm just going to put this in my head. Negative 1 squared is positive 1. And then if I times, then that's just 2. 2 times 1 is just 2. What do I still need to do here? Subtract 7. So negative 5 is the y-intercept. I'm going to put it on there. So -5, 1, -7 is my vertex. That's my y-intercept. Okay, let's do the pattern stuff here. So 1, 1, 2, 4, 3, 9. That's every time what I'm just starting with. Always the basic pattern. But our slope is 2. So now what do I do with that in this chart? Times this pattern by 2, just the up part. So 1 over 2 up. Ooh, guess what?
It did that already.
We did that already. That's a match, so that's always satisfying when you see something like that. 2 over 8 up. And that's good enough. We're not going to do the 18. I think on your test, I ask you for 5 coordinates. So there's your 5. Right? That's my 5 points. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay? So on your test, that's what I'm expecting you to do. Okay. And the third equation is the one we just introduced on Friday. We just started talking about it. And this one is called general form, and it looks like this. ax squared plus bx plus c. And what did we do last time? Negative b over 2a, and then we plugged it in. So this was something new that we learned on Friday. Okay, so ready? The vertex. Actually, let's write down here, what's the a, what's the b, what's the c? So a is what number of x squareds do I have? -1. What number of x's do I have? -6. And then c is just a number that's a constant number. Okay, so I'm just going to write this down so that we can see it. You have your formula sheet. Negative b over 2a. So negative b means do the opposite of our b. So if we had -6, we're now going to write +6 over 2 times -1. If you do this in your calculator, you must type it in like that with brackets. You have to do that, or else it'll be thrown off, okay, with BEDMAS stuff. Okay, if you are using your calculator, that has to be in brackets. I'm going to do this in my head because the bottom is -2. What's 6 divided by -2? -3. Now I need to plug that into my equation. So y equals negative of -3 squared minus 6 times -3 plus 3. Here is a place where I trick a lot of people on the test. I can fix that. Come on. Don't die. Okay. Do you see why we could get tricked there? Because it's the BEDMAS of it is like -1. It's a -1 is like separate, times the negative 3 squared. So I would be doing the squared part, and then after I'm done the squared part, I'm timesing it by negative 1. Do you understand the BEDMAS of that?
Yeah.
This is the x value squared, so x value would be squared, and then this is the afterthought times by negative 1. Okay, it gets a lot of people on the test, so be careful with the BEDMAS thought of it. Okay, so what does that come out to be? So square it, and then timesing it would end up negative 9 there.
For the vertex?
Yeah. Do you understand the difference between me doing something like this?
No.
Did you learn this in grade 10?
Yes, but I always forget it.
These are different things. These are not the same thing. Right? What would this come out to be? And this would be? Okay. Okay, so just be very careful with when you have the negative numbers in there. Okay, negative 9. What happens with the subtract 6 times negative 3?
Multiply first.
So the two negates make a positive 18. Okay, so now I'm at 12. Right?
Yep.
So my vertex, ooh, we're going to run out of our map here. So 10, 11, 12. There's my vertex, negative 3, 12. Negative 3, 12.
Sometimes we go downwards, but it's not needed.
Okay, what is our slope number? Negative 1. It's what's the multiplier on the x squared part? What's the domain? Same. And when I think about the range, I first have to say which way am I opening? Down. So therefore, the lowest negative infinity to the height of 12. And then the axis, we're going to cut through the middle at x equals negative 3. Okay, this y-intercept is, again, where x equals 0, but it's a lot faster to do this one. Just like that, you got your answer. Positive 3. Here's y. Okay, if I was to show my work, which I don't need to on this, this is what's happening. What happens in math when you plug in 0 for all the x's? They disappear and you end up with just the plus 3.
Is that how it is for all of the equations like this?
Oh, not this one though, because on this
Well,
one,
no, but like where
Where-
you get all 3 x's.
when it looks like that,
Yeah.
in this,
That's what I mean.
like in this form, always just the constant number. If it does,
What happens to the negative 6?
it's negative 6 times 0.
Oh, okay.
Because you plugged in a 0 onto the x. So, okay, I'm actually going to put that onto my graph here. 3. Okay, so I'm going to start this process with a 1, 1, 2, 4, 3, 9. We were told our slope is negative 1. So that means our chart pattern is changing. So negative 1, negative 4, negative 9. Sorry, this is not good on our graph here, but I'm going to go over 1, down 1. I'm I'm going to go over 2, down 4. By the way, that would be a height of 8, right? Because we were at a height of 12. So if you go down 4, and there's my shape. And it makes me feel good when it's also going through my Y-intercept, right? Okay, so those are the 3 forms of the quadratic equation that you're going to have to understand. So that's your recap of them. At the bottom, I put some examples that might be tricky and confusing. Okay, so these 3, I just want you to get the vertex. Okay, so where are you looking here? What do you want to look at? The first,
Transformation.
the second one? Okay. What is the vertex then? Well, I feel like the 5 part is here, right? So opposite. And then plus a number. Well, there is no plus a number or minus a number at the end. There's no number. So then 0. Okay, number 2. I feel like I want to put my eyes onto this first one. Does that make sense why I'm looking at that one? Because I see this going on. All right, what is in the brackets with the x? Nothing. So 0. And then positive 6, because on that I have to do opposite. And what are we doing here? Where are your eyes going? I think I'm going to do this one, second one. What number is with the x? 0. And then 2. Okay, so sometimes I feel like it tricks people when there's nothing or if the form is all mixed up.